Billy, what do you think of your group right now? Obviously, you guys are eager to get David back whenever that happens, but what good is coming from not having him in the mix and the work that other guys are getting, and you're a leader of that group? What do you think you got right now?
We got a lot of young guys, with a lot of potential. Obviously, Dave is, the best in the league at left tackle. So whenever you miss a guy like that on your team, on your offensive line, it sucks. But I mean, to be honest with you, our coaches, since I've been here, have done a great job of preparing all of us to be able to step in at different positions and to know what we're doing each and every play, and just preparing us for game day. So I'm not worried about it.
As someone who's played quite a bit of left tackle, you watch Elton out there, what are you thinking? The guy's effectively been unbeatable out there a lot of camp.
Elton's an athlete, so you can put Elton anywhere on the offensive line and not really have to worry about him. That's why I'm not worried about who's at any position. I'm just trying to help the staff and help the team focus on learning and getting into the details of each and every play and the scheme, because that's ultimately what's going to make us a better offense and a better team down the road.
Is that what the biggest difference was, how the offense really took off last year, was everyone had a year or two understanding of those details?
I definitely think it played a part in it. Complex offenses, they're great and all, don't get me wrong, but they take a long time to nail those fine details. And the longer you're around individuals, whether it be a coach and a quarterback, an offensive line, skill position players, it doesn't really matter. But, the more repetitions and the longer you're around people, you start to understand not only the flow of how everybody operates within the offense, but everybody starts to, pick up on those fine details within each and every play.
A lot of guys speak very highly of Steno, obviously. How did a young coach like that earn your guys' respect the way he has?
I mean, anytime you're a coach, when you're able to get up in front of, a group of men and kind of present a scheme to a lot of guys who it was the first new scheme they had been introduced to in their NFL career, but introduce something that people are unfamiliar with, and you're able to teach them and to coach them, and they get out at practice and they actually follow through with those techniques and they see that it works. That's the biggest thing right away, is if you're teaching me something that I can go and utilize out there on the field that I'm going to be beneficial with, then you're going to start to build trust right away. And I think that was one of the biggest things with Steno a couple years ago when he first got here was, some of the guys, Corey, Brian, and Dave, who had been here in the same system for so long, they've done stuff the same way their entire career. And when Steno got here and started changing some of that stuff up, guys might have been a little bit hesitant, but as soon as they started to do that and to be able to utilize that and to put it into their game and their play on game day, everyone kind of just started rolling, and it was kind of everything after that just, kind of just continued to roll.
Coach LaFleur said you guys were the deepest group he's ever been around, that offensive line position. What are your feelings when you hear something like that? Do you agree?
I mean, it's a hell of a compliment, but again, you got to hand that to the coaching staff. They do a great job preparing us, but at the same time, the Green Bay Packers, there's a standard for offensive line play, and all the older guys in the room let the younger guys know that from day one. As soon as they walk into this building and walk into that room, there is a standard. Steno played here. Steno knows that, and that's one of the biggest things that him and Buckus both harp on, especially with the younger crowd, is, look, man, there's a standard. Like, we're one of the best year in and year out. That is the standard. We are not players, so you need to figure your stuff out.
Who's one of those young guys? Obviously, it's hard for people, I'll speak for myself. It's hard for me to tell what offensive linemen the young guys are good just by watching practice. Who's a young guy that we should be keeping an eye on this preseason?
I mean, the guys they drafted last year and the guys they drafted this year, they all have potential. We all look at things a little bit different. I look at things different than Dave, and we look at things different than Corey and Brian did. Same with the coaching staff. So, I mean, what do I look at? I look at offensive linemen' feet, because if you can move your feet, that means you can stay in front of a lot of people in this league. I think that's one of the biggest things at this level is the speed, especially at tackle with edge rushers like Von Miller, people who can really run off the ball. You got to have the footwork and you got to know your technique to be able to get off the ball. So personally, I look at feet, but to be honest with you, all of these guys that have come in the last 2 years that I've been here, they all bring something different to the table and they all have a lot of potential.
Hey, Billy, a few minutes ago, we were talking about Mercedes in here. I'm just curious from your perspective, with him and as accomplished of a blocking tight end as he's been in this league, what has your experience been like lining up next to him, and in what ways can someone like that help in terms of what a tackle's responsibilities are when you're going against the run?
I mean, to be honest with you, anytime Sadie's is next to me on the field, I'm excited because of the mentality that he brings not only to the field but to the building every day. He loves this game, and he brings the same effort day in and day out. He's probably one of the best blocking tight ends in the history of the game, if you ask me. And to be able to line up next to somebody like that is special. So whenever he's next to me on the line of scrimmage, I just get excited.
Billy, you go into, you've had versatility, that's been part of your game your entire NFL career. You went wherever they needed you last year. Do you go into this season the same way, just, hey, expect the unexpected, or I might have to play a bunch of different positions, or what do you kind of go in expectation-wise for yourself?
I learned a long time ago that I cannot approach any season with expectations of playing any position. It's the same year in and year out. I approach the season wherever I'm at day one of training camp might not be where I'm at day two, and it might not be where I'm at the end of training camp, the middle of the season, or the end of the year. You just never know, and you always got to be ready to switch positions. And to be honest to you, that's just who I am as a player, and it's honestly helped me in my career a lot. And like you said, last year, having to bounce back and forth between all those positions has only made me a better player. So,
I can just ask Cole Van Lanen, obviously us being local news, just a local boy. What have you seen from him without pads on yet? Because I know it's kind of hard.
Cole has good technique. Watching Cole play, I was talking with Steno a couple of weeks ago. It must have been during the spring, and that was one of the things that I noticed right away with him is he's very intricate with his technique. The way that he moves, the way that he uses his hands, so on and so forth, whether that was, his coach at Wisconsin or whatever, but that with Cole, that was one thing that I personally noticed right away.
Has he taught you anything or showed you anything Green Bay? I know you've been here, but has he brought anything Green Bay to you, just being him?
I mean, no, not personally, no, not yet, but you raise a great point. We'll have to discuss that in the meeting this afternoon.
Hey, Billy, this time last year, we were having some pretty heavy-duty discussions with you, and you were really enlightening for those of us that don't have the same life experience that you have. That stuff is not necessarily front and center now. Do those conversations with your guys still go on, though? I mean, are you having those kind of deep conversations, even though those stories aren't maybe being talked about the way they were at this time last year?
We have a very diverse team. We have a diverse offensive line group, and we talk about any and everything in the offensive line room. That's one of the things that I like about being an offensive lineman and being a part of this group here is it doesn't matter what the subject is. Everybody has respect for where everyone has come and where everyone or what everyone has gone through. So, if it's Simone Biles in the Olympics, we talk about that. If it's racial injustice, we talk about that. It really, truly doesn't matter. And like I said, that's one of the best things about being a part of this offensive line group is the diversity and the things that we're able to just talk about and be men about in front of one another in there. And then as for the team, that's always going to be something that's on my mind as a black man. Like you said, that's not something that is front and center, but that doesn't mean that it's not something that's very evident in our community and in our world right now. It's no different now than it was last year, and to be completely honest with you, I don't know why it's front and center. I think that's just kind of how things go, whether it's media or whether it's just things that happen in the world. It is what it is. But, I'd love to be somebody that brings that stuff up and raises concern about that day in and day out. But to be honest with you, I'm here to do a job, and I'm not going to stand in front of everybody and raise the same thing over and over again. You pick and choose your times to discuss things like that, and as a team and as an organization, the Green Bay Packers do a great job of letting us as athletes and us as individuals speak about things and handle things in our own way.
What about bigger picture? Like, it's interesting we have you and Mercedes here because you're two guys that when we talk to you, it's more than just the football aspect when we do get to interact with you. Is that a role you really relish in the locker room like he does, where guys can come and talk to you about literally anything, whether it's improving a block or talking about some real world stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to shut down anybody that wants to come and have a conversation with me about any type of topic. And that goes with, our coaching staff, our front office, and all players and personnel in this building. I talk to a lot of different people in here about a lot of different things. I go back and talk to Marge and the sewing ladies on a regular basis. They're some of my favorite people in the building, But again, a lot of the young guys, they're still kind of in that area where they might be a little bit nervous to talk to some of the older guys and whatnot, but it's just kind of one of those things. As you kind of go on throughout training camp, everyone starts to open up a little bit, and by the time you get to week 2, week 3, everyone is kind of starting to come into their own, and that's when you start to get some interesting questions. That's when you start to broaden your horizons with the topics and whatnot that the team maybe is talking about. You can go to any table in the lunchroom at any given time and hear 5 different topics, you know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of one of those things that you just got to wait a little bit, but everyone has a different personality. There's definitely guys that are more open right away, and there's guys that are a little bit more closed off and just need a little bit more time.